February Revolution is one of the series of revolutions during the Russian Revolution, which happened at 8th March 1917. In this revolution, people were expecting to solve the problems with the old type of reigning and successful wasting the Russians' resources without people's agreement and appreciation the prices on the essential needs for usual people. The first reason about why the February Revolution was so long waited is the inefficient autocracy. In the whole Europe, almost everyone got rid of the person who does all the country's decisions by himself, and he is completely independent from the people. Because he had ultimate power, he could use or waste the resources of the country as he wishes, which not everyone always likes it. People do not decide the future Tsar of the country, so the offsprings of the existing Tsar get the privileges to control the country. That means that offspring does not necessarily need to get the respect and preferences from the people by the deep learning about how to control the country, having respect to the people, a generous heart and clever mind, because he anyway gets them without any work. So the people were needed to endure all and any acts from the Tsar, king. Comparing to the French Revolution also had problems with autocracy, which gave to Louis XVI too much power on his wasteful goals. The second reason about how needful was the revolution is unskilled and unsuccessful wasting the Russians' resources. Nicholas II, which was the Tsar of that time, always wanted to win some wars, but he didn't notice how awful were the peasants' conditions during the wars. Because he was very unskilled in controlling the armies at the first time, and he wasted over 310,000 people just because of his indecision of the most leadership to attack Japan. Later, Japan unexpectedly attacked them and destroyed the most powerful weapons which they had. The war was finished and Russia gave to the opponents the east part, Sakhalin Island. Comparing to the French Revolution's causes, it also had problems with the economy. People were paying a lot of taxes because of the king wasn't doing any successful actions to earn money for the country. The First World War placed an unbearable strain on Russia's weak government and economy, resulting in mass shortages and hunger. In the meantime, the mismanagement and failures of the war turned the people and, of course, the soldiers against the Tsar, whose decision to take personal command of the army seemed to make him personally responsible for the loss. The next war, World War I, was a total disaster for Russia. The Russian army suffered defeat at the hands of Germany. 1914, the Russians actually went to Eastern Germany with two large armies, but they were totally destroyed by smaller German forces at the battles of Tannenberg and Maturin Lakes. 1915, Germany turned the full weight of its power against Russia and launched a series of offensives against the Russian army. The Russians were beaten and learned. 1916, the Russians did win some victories against the Austrians and regained some territory. But then the German army attacked in support of their Austrian ally, and again Russia suffered a heavy defeat. Nicholas II was taking control of this war, and he was strongly unhappy to understand that to continue the war, it is necessary to make concessions. So he made crisis in Russia by making all manpower on the farms to participate in the war. By 1916, there were serious shortages of food in the city, shops, and the price of even the most basic foods was highly raised. The Russian railway system had to cope with the pressures of moving large quantities of troops and supplies to the battlefronts. This made it more difficult to keep the cities supplied with food. Russian industry moved into crisis during the war. Vital raw materials from overseas could no longer reach Russia. The shortages of both raw materials, and finished goods grew worse. The army faced major shortages of supplies and weapons, therefore they were fighting without any equipment and food. By 1916, the value of the ruble had fallen substantially, leading to soaring prices. This made life increasingly difficult, particularly for poorer people. A big amount of workers from the industrial were taking part in the revolution. The protesters faced the police, but they refused to leave the streets. On March 10th, the strike spread among all of Petrograd's workers, and angry hordes destroyed the police station. On March 11th, the troops of the Petrograd army's garrison were called out to stop the protesters. In some battles, police opened fire, killing protesters, but the protesters stayed to streets and troops began to retreat. On March 12th, the revolution triumphed when police, after a regiment of the Petrograd garrison, went to the site of the protesters. Nicholas II was forced to leave his throne and later was executed. However, the victory of the February Revolution turned Russia into the free country, giving the masses an opportunity to make their own political rights. Coming out of the underground, Bolshevik party launched a great missionary work among the masses. March 18th, again beginning out the Truth newspaper. Trade unions, which are a volunteer group for goal with a general favor, began creating factory committees which became a stronghold of workers. Control over production formed workers' small police units. During March occurred 600 councils, workers' deputies of workers and soldiers' deputies of peasants' deputies. The February Revolution, evaluated as the greatest event in the history of Russia. The centuries-old monarchy was removed, and the lives in each social class. I think that the events were unlikely to develop otherwise. The financial crisis that gave rise to inflation and the destruction of the market showed the further development of events.